This is why I came. Natalie. This is indeed a great day. All my family has converged here and I cannot be much happier. There were times when I was restless, wondering if I'll ever see my children again. I therefore propose a toast to our long lives and to our grandchildren, Father says. Everyone roars in laughter. This is the most unexpected meeting. I wasn't expecting to find Boniface here because I thought he was still in the battleground. I was certain that he would somehow secure his freedom though. But finding him here is my biggest surprise. I am always happy to see him. He gives me some sense of security, and after his exploits from the war I view him in a different perspective. There is something about him that I admire very much. His resilience. It has come to his rescue, and mine, so many times. And looks very much at home, and now that each of us has taken a shower and changed, she looks more beautiful than ever before. I have given her some of my clothes and they fit her just fine. Her military fatigues are somewhere in a dirty clothes basket. I am so happy for her, knowing that she is now in the safe hands of Boniface. The two lovebirds keep on exchanging glances, and I am certain they can't wait to be alone in Boniface's room. Listen, there is something I need to tell you before you hear it from anyone else. I say. Everyone falls silent and they turn their gazes to me in anticipation. The tone of my announcement itself must have been so serious that they want very much to hear what it is I have to say. I hate to spoil the ongoing party mood, but I have no choice. Alpha George Alfred is dead. He died a few hours ago. I say, after keeping them waiting for so long. The news are so shattering and shocking such that Mum rises from her chair gasping. No, that is not true. I saw him. He was so full of health. Just 3 days ago. It can't be, she says. Father is resting his head on his hands. Boniface and adopt an I don't care attitude. It's true, Mum. He sustained serious injuries in the battleground and they whisked him here on an ambulance. But he wasn't so lucky. He died at around 6 p.m. this evening. I explain. Somehow I think I should have kept quiet and let them know from other means because I can see that the information is so devastating that it has ruined our get-together. The drinks remain untouched in their glasses. Natalie, Father finally says after regaining his composure. Do you understand the impact of your news on our pack? Do you realize that we have now been left without a leader? He asks, his head still held between his hands. Mom has disappeared into the kitchen, and I highly suspect that she's crying. Wrong, Father. We are not left without a leader. As we talk, Alpha Jones, George's father, is in control, and quite frankly I think he is better suited to rule. Unlike his son, who has been a complete failure, an egomaniac. Throw in some element of greed and you have created a monster who cannot think straight. I say. Stop, Natalie! Mom shouts from the kitchen, and a moment later she appears in the sitting room, wiping tears with a towel. All these attributes you talk about in Alpha George. He wouldn't have them if it were not for you. You turned the young boy into a monster and now he's dead. All because of you, she says, pointing a finger at me. Now this is new. How am I connected to George's degenerate behavior? Excuse me, Mum, but I don't understand. What are you implying? I ask. Boniface and his mate watch the unfolding drama in silence. Mum walks closer, like a defense lawyer coming closer to a witness, ready for cross-examination. Natalie, Alpha George was your mate, a sacred pairing made by the moon goddess herself. You were supposed to stick by him until his death by natural means. And ever since you left he degenerated into this thing you have chosen to call an egomaniac, she says. But wait, this can't go unchallenged. Mom, I can't believe you can say that. On the day of his inauguration he clearly said to me that I am not worthy to become his mate because I was an Omega and declared his rejection to me. I was then a young girl. What do you think I should have done in such circumstances? I ask her. She walks back to her seat next to father, and when she has finally settled, she speaks. Natalie, my daughter, you should not have run away. Maybe he was drunk or something. And about that rejection, I can tell you for sure that it never happened. He may have rejected you by speaking the words, but deep inside his wolf always yearned for you. His heart belonged to you. I tell you this because as a worker in the pack house, many are the times I used to hear him uttering your name. You were always in his heart. Something else, if you can remember well, it is only after he was certain that he can't have you after you were made Luna that he instigated the ill-advised war against the Woodland Pack. This he only did to spite your new mate Alpha James, hoping that somehow the man may die in battle, then you will have no alternative but to come back to him. Mom continues explaining, with a lot of pain written all over her face. Oh George, did you deserve to die like this, at this tender age? She weeps. Father holds her closely as the room goes silent. I regret why I brought this up. I should have just said that the man is dead and left it at that. I am sorry, Mum, but his rejection hurt me deeply and I found myself running to no destination in particular. I earned this scar from a wild animal because I was fleeing from that rejection. That's how I ended up in the hands of Anne's father's family. Besides, he had warned me not to ever talk about it with anyone else. I say, I am not going to accept any form of guilt to be apportioned on me. Mom is still crying and father speaks. Your mother is right, and so are you. There is absolutely nothing you could have done to rescind that rejection, and I'm certain it hurt you deep and you experienced unknown pain. On the other hand, Alpha George destroyed himself by rejecting you. His heart was still yearning for you. You were his mate, at least according to his wolf. He chose to ignore his wolf. Now see the consequences, he says. And I tell you that the man was dangerous even to us old pack members. You should remember that he had me arrested for no reason at all. He was thinking straight and the level of deterioration was so fast. He adds, but I got another mate. How do you explain that? I ask, steering away from the deterioration. Mom has now stopped sobbing and sits silently, thinking deeply. This is what you need to understand. When he rejected you, your wolf was free to link up with another mate. But his wasn't because you didn't reject him yourself. You should have uttered the same words to him, to free up his wolf for possible pairing up with another mate. Therefore when you left it was easy for you to get paired up. Father explains. That one I did about 3 days ago. I say. I remember vividly how he went down on his knees as the pain of rejection tore him up. That was too late when the damage was already done. George tried pairing up with many other girls, but his true mate was you. You didn't free up his wolf in time, and that's where the problem arose. Now he wanted to break the mate bonds between you and Alpha James so that he can establish himself over you. He says, that is a good life wasted because of peer pressure and poor advice from immature advisors. He should have taken up his father as an advisor, but again he relegated him to a small house in the woods. George would have made a good leader, but he wasted himself through a series of bad decisions. Right from the very beginning when he rejected you. Father is making sense. Then do we all agree that I had no part to play in all these bad decisions? I ask. Mom has composed herself and she answers me. My daughter, now this is water under the bridge. Forgive me for my earlier statement. I was overcome by grief. George was like a son to me. I brought him up when I worked for his parents and he used to call me Mama. Now, about his degeneration of character. He should have accepted you as his mate, bearing in mind the seriousness of those bonds. That way he would have become a very strong alpha, respected by his peers, like Alpha James, but his pride came in his way. I can only say that he rests in peace. She says. Thanks, Mum. His rejection was a blessing in disguise to me because I met a man who values me for what I am. I feel appreciated by everyone in the pack and they look up to me as their leader. And now that brings me to the topic I want us to discuss tonight before we go to bed. I say. Again, everyone goes silent. The title I carry, of Luna, is so powerful, almost as strong as the Alpha, and I have noticed that when I speak, people listen. I want all of you to relocate and join me in the Evergreen Pack, starting with Boniface and Anne. And by the way, I never heard anyone welcoming Anne to this family. How about that? I pause to let the question sink. Then I proceed. Starting with you two. I would like to go back home with you when I go tomorrow. You will start life at the Evergreen Pack. We are family and we shouldn't stay far away from each other. That's what I wanted us to talk about. That's why I came here. I say. Boniface speaks first. Thanks, Natalie. I don't want to speak on behalf of our parents, but Anne and I are ready to move. We are going with you, he says, and nods in agreement. Natalie, this is not something we can decide right now. Please give us time to think about it, bearing in mind that this pack is home and it's the only place we have known since childhood. But again, give us time to debate it between us and we will let you know later when we reach an agreement, Father says. Thanks, Father. I would really be happy to see all of you together with me, but should you decide to continue on staying here, I'll still respect your decision, I say. And have you consulted Alpha James about this? Boniface asks. No need. I don't see how he can object to such a noble idea. Now that we are through with all this, why don't we stand up and propose a toast to the welcoming of and into this family? May she find happiness and bloom in this family, and may she be blessed with many pups, I say, and everyone else agrees with me. It is very late in the night when we go to bed, but right then my wolf becomes restless and I wonder if she's going to allow me to sleep and the way I am tired.
Meet Alpha Jones, James. The cold breeze of the night blows through the long grass, and the moonlight gives it a brown hue. I can sense the scent of wolves, but I can't determine how many they are. I must acknowledge their ability to camouflage themselves, because there is none that I can see. Obeying their command, I fish out my dagger from my belt and drop it. Then I raise my hands. I come in peace. You can approach me now, I shout. My voice is echoed through the plains and into the forest yonder. Silence. I stand at the same spot for about a minute and no one approaches or says a thing. Then just when I am about to lower my tired hands, I see them. 3 men materialize out of the tall grass just in front of me, and each one holds a sword, ready to strike should I try something funny. If I had made some few steps in the grass, I would have stumbled into them. They approach me silently with caution and I stand still. When the first one gets to me, he lowers his sword and frisks me of any concealed weapon, and finding none, he goes down and picks up my dagger. He puts it inside his pocket after wrapping it up with a polythene bag. Good work, commendable. Before you ask, let me introduce myself. I am Alpha James of the Evergreen Pack. I am here to talk to the Alpha of this pack, and I would appreciate if you took me to him. I say. I can see them relaxing their guard. Their delay in approaching me is very well understandable, and I would have done the same if I were in their place. As wolves, it is very easy to detect a trouble seeker, and I guess they could sense from their hideout that I meant no harm. Secondly, they could detect from my scent that I wasn't a rogue, hence heightening their confusion. Rogues have their own unique scent. Oh, Alpha James. But of course, we must alert our Alpha about your unexpected arrival. But you have breached the protocols. This is no way to get into our territory, and for a moment we thought you were a rogue. I bet you haven't announced you're coming to the Alpha, one of them says. I had to take the shortest way possible. I need to see your Alpha, and please, it's urgent. I had no time to inform him about my coming through diplomatic channels, and I understand it's late in the night and I won't mind waiting till dawn. If you would show me to some place where I can spend the night, I say. They exchange glances, communicating through mind links. Then the one I perceive to be their leader speaks. We will have to take you to our pack house. The beta of our pack will deal with you, since the Alpha can't be disturbed at this hour. Let's get moving. Oh, and your dagger. We remain with it until we get instructions from Beta William. He says, this way, he adds, motioning towards the hilltops, which are now just about 2 miles away. There are lights at the top to indicate the presence of some settlements, and one structure in particular emits so much light, and I guess it must be the pack house. We walk in silence, our feet crunching on the dry grass, and in 30 minutes we are outside the imposing pack house. The leader of the patrol has already mind-linked someone, and I can figure out a person standing against a pillar outside the main building. I guess him to be the beta they have talked about earlier. Welcome, Alpha James. It's a pleasant surprise to see you, and it's my honor to welcome you to the Two Hills Pack. Please, come after me, shall we? He says as he gestures. The patrol team is left outside as the man leads me inside. I am Beta William. I have managed to talk to the Alpha, and he is on the way here. I thought he would be asleep, but when he heard you were here, he got so eager to see you. Let's wait for him at his office. This way, he says as we walk down an expansive hallway. At the furthest end of the hallway is a huge door, carved from expensive-looking wood. Light from the chandelier above gives it a warm shine, and I guess it must be the proceeds of the loot Alpha George has been getting from the rogues. William opens the door and I find myself in a very large office. He ushers me into a couch, and when I see he remains standing, it's only then that I realize that I am really tired, and I can do with a good night's sleep. Just a few moments and the Alpha will be coming. As a matter of fact, I can hear his car approaching. Unlike the late Alpha George, this Alpha lives in some house in the woods but uses this office to transact pack business. He says, I don't like people who divulge more information than necessary. Pack business is not something to be discussed with strangers. Where the Alpha lives, for instance, must a very highly guarded secret. I keep quiet and let him talk. I have to warn the Alpha about him. Alpha George was so careless. No wonder he is dead at that tender age. What was he looking for at the woodland pack that we don't have here? He asks himself. The man is now getting into my nerves, but I am happy that it won't be for long because I can hear a car's door shutting outside. Here comes the Alpha, he says. I can hear the impact of hard-soled shoes as they walk through the tiled hallway, and in a moment a tall lean man walks in. He is dressed in casual clothes and a baseball cap, just an ordinary guy. The one you would find in the streets. Alpha James, welcome to our pack. We weren't expecting you, but since you are here, we can talk, he says in a smooth voice that belies the power behind the words. We shake hands and he proceeds to sit behind the huge mahogany table. Behind him is a huge stack of materials bundled together as if someone is moving. He notices my eyes and reads my mind. These belong to my son. I want them to be removed so that I can reconfigure the house to my taste. I like books and magazines. My son liked paintings and art. Everyone to their taste, wouldn't you say? He says. I have noticed that Mr. Chatterbox William has sneaked out silently. He comes back in again with a flask and 2 cups, then he pours some sweet-smelling coffee into the cups. It's as if he knows that I like hot drinks at night. So, Alpha James, tell me what brings you here at night? He asks me as he slumps back in his chair. He has removed his cap and now I can see his silver gray hair. It must be hereditary because he isn't an old man. I guess he is around 50 years old. He looks at me pensively, waiting for my answer, and I have my words rehearsed. Alpha Jones, I must say I am happy to see you. I remember coming here many years ago with my father. I say. Yes, you were very young then. I remember that, he says. As he scribbles something on a piece of paper, I decide to go straight to the point. I am a troubled man, Alpha Jones. My mate and Luna of our pack, a daughter of this pack, was taken hostage by your son and previous Alpha. I come in peace, the peace which has existed between our packs for a year. I am asking for her release and subsequent handover to me. I say. I have been repeating this speech over and over again, and I am certain that I haven't left out a single word. Alpha Jones seems unmoved by the speech and his face is expressionless. He clears his throat and lights a cigar. Alpha James, I am very sorry for the actions of my son. He didn't have to do some of the things that he did, he says as his head gets obstructed from view by a cloud of thick cigar smoke as it drifts towards the open window. I am trying to mend where he went wrong. For example, in your case, I released your mate immediately after I took over power. That one shocks me, but I pretend to be unmoved. I am pretty sure that she is at her parents' house and I'll soon find her. The next thing I'll do is to mend the strained ties between our packs. Your father and I had several peace treaties and I would like us to revive them since they have now been thrown into jeopardy by my son, he adds. This is not something I can do alone. I need advice from my beta, or even my father. Alpha Jones reaches out for a drawer and retrieves 2 files. He flips open one of them and starts going through it. Thankfully, the war George started is over and we can start building on peace, I say. Jones looks up from the file he's reading and looks at me, then smiles and goes back to reading the file. Alpha James, the war hasn't ended, it has just started. His words startle me to attention. There is this girl from your pack, Janet. She has been photographed by our spies as she was talking to a very dangerous rogue. If she teams up with him, you, or me, will be in great danger. I hear she's seeking for revenge after you threw her out. I would watch my step very carefully if I were you, he says. That makes my body sick. This Janet, why didn't I kill her when I had a 14? The Alpha is still talking. Your brother Boniface Stevens is also living on borrowed time, if I may put it that way. Jones pauses to fill his lungs with smoke. The tip of the cigar goes red as he pulls in excess smoke. I wonder what Boniface has gotten himself into. Last time I heard about him, he had escaped from the battleground after wounding George mortally. I wonder if it's for that reason that the Alpha is referring to. It's as if he sees my thoughts. Boniface killed important people from the Woodland Pack, and as we talk they have commissioned a very expensive assassin to take him out. I have all the intelligence here, he says, waving the file. I thought that I was coming in here to take my mate and disappear, but now it's very complicated. Lastly, my pack is in danger of an attack and I would like to ask you for your help. Should an attack happen, George made a lot of enemies and they are now grouping to cause trouble. Help me protect my pack and I'll never forget about you, he says pleadingly. I feel so tired and exhausted and I can't think straight. I need some sleep and some more time to decipher what I have heard. Thanks for the information, Alpha Jones. However, I can't think about the issues you have raised right now. Allow me to think about them tonight and I will give you my answer tomorrow, please. And I have a request, that you find me somewhere I can sleep. I am very tired, I say. He looks at me as if he is yielding to my mind. Then he gets up from his seat. As you wish, my son. This way, he says as he leads the way. The mystery explained. James. The Alpha and members of the Two Hills Pack hold a luncheon in my honor. There are foods of every nature and drinks, with many important pack officials in attendance. I find it very interesting because just a few days ago my biggest enemy, or the man I hated most, was their previous Alpha. How soon he has been forgotten baffles me. I hear he was buried in the middle of the night in an undisclosed location and right now everyone has moved on as if nothing has happened. No one mentions Alpha George even in passing. I have been reunited with my mate Natalie and her parents who are also invited to the luncheon. Also present is Boniface, seated next to me as we take our drinks, and we share a light moment. Do you remember that incident when we faced each other? I ask him. Oh yes, he says smiling slyly. I remember everything. Why did you spare me? I had already said the final prayers? I ask a question that has haunted me throughout the war. He takes a huge sip from his glass and asks me to accompany him in a stroll outside. In the bustle that is the pack's ballroom, no one notices as we walk out into the manicured gardens. The air outside is clear and my lungs appreciate the sudden change from the warm house. I still have my glass of juice in my hands while Boniface has a glass of clear liquid, probably vodka. I thought you knew the reason right away? He breaks the silence after we have walked several steps away. I wouldn't be asking if I knew, I quip. It was all about my sister Natalie. I knew that if something happened to you she would be very devastated. That's the reason I didn't strike the final blow. And tell you what, that was the beginning of the mistrust between me and Matthew. A situation that deteriorated until he had me imprisoned. He says, but I also wonder how quickly you have managed to heal. He adds, oh my goodness, he doesn't know about his sister's healing prowess. I must tell him. Your sister is a remarkable person. She's the one who healed me just by placing her hand on my wound. I would still be grounded if it were not for her. I reply. I see the look in his eyes and it's as if he's trying to remember something. Yes. I have benefited from it myself. She touched my wound and I got healed too. She has those extraordinary powers. The moon goddess has been kind to her. He says, what would you say about someone who gets rejected by her mate, but she gets blessed with another in only a matter of 4 years? He asks, but this is between us. Alpha George did the right thing to reject her. How would you have met, had it not happened? He asks again. I choose to dwell on her extraordinary qualities. Yes, that's an extraordinary person. I am the luckiest person to have her as my mate. I can see a situation whereby she will be running the pack mostly because, as Alpha Jones told me, there are uncertain days ahead that may require me to be away from the pack. I have seen leadership qualities in her, and what she needs is a little tutelage. The more reason we need to intensify our training sessions. Now Boniface, since we are the two of us here, I think we can talk about something important. I say, both of us are deeply thinking about other issues. Anything, Alpha James, he says. Natalie told me that you have accepted to move to our pack, and I am very happy about that. Now this is what I want. Since we have already established some training programs, I'm wondering if you can become one of the trainers. I say as I look into his eyes. There's no expression in them. He walks away. A few steps, then speaks. But the war is over. Why are you still training? He asks. Boniface, the war isn't over. It's nowhere near over. In fact, the situation just got thicker. I hear that a very dangerous rogue is planning to attack us, and we should be prepared for them. I need trainers, and you fit the bill, Boniface. I say, think about it. Take all the time you need, but remember we don't have all the time. Also, be on the lookout. I hear also that the Woodland Pack have hired a mercenary to kill you. His expressionless eyes suddenly take interest, and I continue painting the picture. They say you killed someone very important to them and they ain't letting it go. He is shocked as I was when I heard about it, but as a fighter I know he will handle the matter. He sinks into deep thought, probably thinking about what to do, and I take the opportunity to finish my juice. And Boniface, congratulations, I hear you have a mate from my pack. It strengthens our already existing bonds, and I wish you nothing but happiness and bliss. I say. At that point Natalie emerges from the back door of the pack house and looks around, and when she sees us she shouts,
There you are! I have been looking for you!
She approaches and I walk towards her. Anything up, darling? I ask.
Nothing really, but Alpha Jones needs to see us all. Come, the two of you. We shouldn't keep him waiting,
she says, and we all walk in single file to the house. I wonder what it is that makes Alpha Jones summon us. I had plans to leave after the luncheon because members of my pack should be very worried about me, with neither Natalie's whereabouts nor mine being known. There must be some concern back there. I just hope that we won't be taking long with Jones, so that we may leave immediately after the meeting. We are ushered into his office, and I marvel at how quickly he has transformed to a business suit. Just a few moments ago he was casually dressed for the luncheon. He cuts the image of a man who is on top of things, a stark contrast to his son George, who looked every part as a rock star. We take our seats opposite him. An orderly gives each one of us a bottle of bottled water. Alpha James, I know you are wondering why I have called you in here. I know that you are planning to leave, but before you leave there are some new developments that you need to know, which are important in light of the conversation we had last night. He says. Oh no, the rogues haven't started just yet. I whisper to myself. Boniface is not in the meeting. Having excused himself, Natalie listens in silence. We have proof that the girl I told you about, Janet, is leading a group of not less than 30 wolves into your territory. My intelligence officers have photos to prove it. Yesterday I talked about cooperation, and I couldn't sit on this information, knowing how important it may be to you. Now it's up to you to determine why she would do that and what she is up to. He concludes. Natalie gasps in shock and I hold her hand to assure her. Thanks, Alpha Jones. She is naturally up to no good, and so are her friends. Please tell us anything else that may come up, and if possible tell your intelligence officers to keep up with her and share with us about her whereabouts. We now need to get home quickly and deal with this. I say. I would do the same if I were in your place. I'll get back to my officers and convey your message. Rest assured of our help. Please pass my regards to your parents. It's long time since I saw them, he says. Certainly, now we have to go. Thank you so much for your hospitality and about the cooperation we talked about. I'm looking forward to your visit to our pack to cement the deal, I say. Yes, as soon as the transition here is complete, I'll definitely come. We need to restore the old order when we used to unite against attacks on each other. What my son did was so despicable I'm even ashamed of being associated with him. But being my son, I'm prepared to live with it, he says as we rise to go. We shake hands and walk out of the office, and as I close the door behind us I see him holding his head between his hands. He may be acting strong, but the pain of losing his son is eating him away. There's much I have learned about George in just the little time I have been here. Most of it has left me in shock. His father Alpha Jones was not willing to hand over power to him when he did because he suspected, and was right, that George was not ready for leadership, or was not leadership material. But the Luna of the pack and George's mother insisted that George be inaugurated as the Alpha immediately. Her actions were fueled by jealousy, because she feared that the other son to the Alpha, who was older than George by far, would be made the Alpha. Alpha Jones had a mate, and she died after giving birth to a boy known as Jack from childbirth complications. He brought up the kid by himself, and when he was about 6 years old he married George's mother, who became the Luna of the pack. She became so powerful that Jones could do nothing without consulting her. Also, she became so violent towards Jack, subjecting him to unknown torture, denying him food and forbidding him from ever talking to his father. This happened when she was pregnant. When the Alpha learned about this, he took away the young boy Jack and placed him under the care of other relatives in a faraway pack. He would come to visit time and again, but there was evidence of bad blood between him and his stepmother, the Luna, and George's mother. George grew up a pampered kid, with all that he needed at his disposal. I remember this only too well because we were at college together, and even his assignments were done by students who were quick to make a buck. He was always awash with money, and he started running after girls at a very early stage. The girls too were always running after him because he had something young men could only dream of: money. Then his mother pushed for Alpha Jones' retirement, and what happened next was the inauguration of George as the Alpha. Jones took a low profile and retreated to the woods, leaving George to prove to the world that he was not cut to lead. This didn't take long. It took even less than expected. George's inauguration happened for 2 reasons: 1, to spite Jack, and 2, to ensure that the Luna could continue ruling by proxy. That is what led to the disastrous leadership of Alpha George, especially the hidden hand of his mother. Now, the person who gave me this narrative told me that Jack had a mate and 2 children, and his return to the pack was not a matter of if, but when. I heard that he is the complete opposite of George, and he is someone I can look forward to working with. Alpha Jones has also stamped his authority and confined the Luna to her place, deconstructed all her minions and replaced them with new appointees. One of the affected persons in the purge is Beta William, the man who cannot keep his mouth shut. Hey Alpha James, can I bring the car? Boniface approaches me and wakes me from my thoughts. Yes, certainly, we are leaving right now, I respond. He leaves immediately to get his car. Natalie is still in shock after the news about Janet were released to us. After every 5 minutes she clicks her tongue and whispers, "What is she looking for?" This goes on for a while and I don't respond because I have the same question. Then as we walk to the parking lot she shouts,
"Wait, James. I had forgotten to tell you. How could I? Oh, James, forgive me,"
she says, excitement written all over her face. I wonder what this could be. What is it, Natalie? I ask, curiosity eating at me.
"Darling, we are pregnant,"
she shouts out in joy. What? I ask, equally shocked and excited.
"Yes, James. I confirmed it this morning before you came. I had these nausea and morning sickness. Then I decided to buy a pregnancy test kit. You can imagine my happiness when it came positive."
She couldn't converse in low tones and people were milling around us. This is very great news. Let's get home and hold a party to celebrate this, I say as I hold her hand and we approach the car.
"Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, Natalie." We are cruising back to the Evergreen Pack and James has already alerted his beta Josh that he is on the way. Boniface is driving in his mate and is on the co-driver's seat while James and I occupy the back seats in the expensively upholstered behemoth of a car. We talk about general matters, then I remember something I have never asked Boniface. Boniface, this is a very expensive car. How did you afford it? I ask a question that is no doubt in everyone's minds. The car has a V8 engine and the mere rev of the engine suggests that it's a fuel guzzler. It has leather upholstery and it can attain very high speeds. Acceleration from 0 to 100 km per hour takes only 10 seconds. It also has a sunroof and its tires look expensive. Inside the car is very comfortable because it has very good suspension even when it hits potholes we don't notice. This is the type of car driven by successful businessmen, and Boniface is not a business person. He laughs a little then starts explaining. That war we were fighting, it was heavily funded by external forces. Let me call them investors. Alpha George was given huge amounts of money by these shadowy figures to fund the rogues, buy them weapons and other supplies, hire trainers and other logistics and contingencies. However, true to his greedy nature, he never funded them, and pocketed most of the money, he says and pauses to let it sink. In my role as a trainer, I was paid handsomely. Then I received other payments for leading on the front line. It was a windfall for me. This car, I bought it from the proceeds of the war, and it's only a fraction of the money I earned. Much more is hidden in a bank overseas. For my children. But there is something else. All the money that George received from the sponsors. I think it's still holed up somewhere in the rogue camp, buried in some hole, and one day I'll go back there and do some digging, he says. This is so shocking and I wonder why he had not told us about it from the very beginning. He is still talking. Matthew Sanders believed that he was fighting for some territory, for his rights to set up a pack, and looking at him he looked like poverty itself, malnourished and wearing tatters that he had the audacity to call clothes. But George didn't have even the decency to supply them with clothes. He instead supplied them with sophisticated weapons, even guns. This will tell you he was well oiled. But he wasn't supporting Matthew because he had fallen in love with his freedom struggle. He wanted large expanses of the Woodland Pack territory for some business interests. I had the book that outlined what he wanted after the rogues won the war. They had a signed memorandum. Gold mines, cobalt mines and forests were what really drove George to support the rogues, not his love for rogue rights. James clears his throat. Tell me, Boniface, looking at the windfall you got from the war, do you think we will be able to afford your services as a trainer, bearing in mind that we don't have the kind of money that George had? He asks. Everyone laughs at that except Boniface, who is steering the car at very high speeds down the hilly terrain of the Two Hills Pack. He waits for the laughter to end. You won't need to worry about that. I have accepted your job offer as a trainer and you will only need to compensate me according to your ability. I can even conduct it for free. We are family, remember? He answers, and I feel so proud of him. He was ever so selfless since our childhood. The car cruises past the borders and I remember my first day. How I ran past the barriers. We are now in the forest that separates us from the Evergreen Pack. Everyone is silent now as we look forward to getting home. James' phone rings and when he answers I can hear some fragments of the conversation. He is talking to our beta and I gather that the rogue we put in prison for assaulting me on orders from Janet has escaped. James doesn't want me to hear this from the way he talks in a coded language, but I have already heard what I needed to hear. This now doesn't look good. Janet on the loose, approaching the pack in the company of rogues, and his accomplice escaping from prison. This is nothing short of a recipe for disaster. As much as I try to be calm, that phone has ruined my mood and I am no longer looking forward to getting back home. But there are questions that need answers, like how the prisoner managed to escape without inside help. There must be a traitor in the ranks. I remember vividly the day I interviewed Maurice Donalds and all that he told me. What I regret most was my action of releasing Janet without taking her to prison. I hate the way she pretended to be friendly so as for me to pardon her, and most irritating was her presence in the rogue camp where she taunted and insulted me. But now, if I lay my hands on her, she will regret her actions. She will rot in prison.
Darling, stop thinking about her. We will be on control of this. Now you need to be composed, because we have just crossed into our territory. The members of the pack are waiting to welcome us, and they need not see you looking stressed,
James says, waking me from my reverie. The car is now speeding up through the major road leading to the pack house. I will try, I whisper to James. Boniface presses a button on the dashboard and the sunroof slides open. He then advises James to stand up and acknowledge greetings from members who have already lined the road. Long live Alpha James. Long live Luna Natalie, they shout. The car has now slowed down to a speed of about 30 kilometers per hour. I rise too through the sunroof and we both fit properly and wave my hands as we drive towards the pack house. But a sudden fear grasps me and I slide back inside. I remember the words of Alpha Jones about an hired sniper targeting Boniface. This would be a perfect opportunity to shoot him dead. And emerging from the top of the car is suicidal. James, however, remains standing and waves at the cheering crowd until we reach our destination. James addresses the gathering from the roof of the car and thanks them for welcoming him back home.
I am so happy to be back home with my people. As you all know, we had gone to participate in a war to ward off an invasion against our friends,
he says. And I wonder why he still calls them friends, especially now that they have hired a sniper to kill Boniface. I just hope Boniface doesn't hear about this sniper story.
I am happy that you all worked hard to enhance the image of this pack, the Evergreen Pack, ever committed to peace, and always true to its often reiterated commitment to peaceful coexistence.
He continues with his speech. Forgive me for thinking like this, James, but there is a traitor in your ranks. I tell James when we finally get to his office. The welcoming speeches have consumed a lot of time and now it's already 8 o'clock in the evening. Boniface and Anne have retired to the chambers that we have assigned them and now it's only the two of us in the office. We have received briefs from Beta Josh and we are still perusing the files. He looks up from the file he is reading and looks at me thoughtfully.
Why do you think so?
He asks, clearly disturbed at hearing that. I don't buy this story about Maurice Donald's escaping on his own without help from our pack. There is at least one official who helped him escape, and if that is the case then we are in trouble, I say.
And who do you think that might be?
He asks absent-mindedly. Something is bothering him too and I can see his wolf almost coming to the surface. Is he angry? I don't know, but he isn't himself. I don't know. But what I know for sure is that we need to catch them. Or him, I say. Maybe you haven't noticed, but most of the things we do here are not very secret anymore. Starting with our training, I add. He rises from his seat and walks around in thought. You could be right. I need to talk to Beta Josh and brainstorm about it. I don't let him finish the sentence. What if he is among the traitors? I ask him. And the shock in his face is immense.
No, he can't. I have never known a more loyal person,
he says as he goes back to his seat. I keep quiet and let him think about it.
You know what, Natalie? You could be right. I have a plan. Between only the two of us, tomorrow we will hold a meeting between senior pack officials and I will lay a trap. Whoever gets in is the traitor,
he says. And what will be the trap? I ask.
I can't tell even you. That's how secret I want it to remain,
he says. That's fine if it leads to the discovery of the traitors' network. Maybe after we have found them they can lead us to Maurice, Janet and the rogues, I say.
Certainly, we must get hold of them before the graduation day,
he says. What do you mean? Do you have any information about the graduation day? I say, baffled. Again he leaves his seat and walks to the window and looks outside. Then he comes back and stands in front of me, looking me in the eye.
There is a graduation in the next week and you are one of the graduates. Have you forgotten, darling?
He asks. No, I still remember. As a matter of fact, I need to fine-tune the final touches on my studies to be ready for the event. I say.
If you wanted to hide a tree, where would you hide it?
He asks. In a forest. I say, remembering an old proverb but not knowing where his line of questioning is going.
Natalie, if I wanted to kill you, I would hide myself among other graduates, and that is what Janet and his crew are planning. You are marked to die on your graduation day, and we have these few days between now and then to thwart the attempt.
He says. My goodness, I hadn't seen it that way. I just hope that the plans James has in place are going to succeed, because if they don't I may have to skip the graduation to save my life.
Don't worry, Natalie, we will have the traitors and our enemies too, that's an assurance.
He says. What about Boniface? What are you going to do to get the assassin sent to kill him? I ask.
In case I haven't told you, Boniface knows about it. I told him. We will increase the vigilance in our borders and we will certainly nab someone.
He says. But we both know that such kind of killers are very slippery and seldom do they use the borders to cross between territories.
We will hope for the best, Natalie, and prepare for the worst.
He says. The traitor within, Natalie. In the morning, before the meeting, James and I go for an early morning run that takes us deep into the woods. It's been a very long time since we had one, and as werewolves it's something that we should be doing often, to keep us on good physical form and also to acquire fitness. Also, I need to be taking them regularly in the first 3 months of my pregnancy because after that it will be difficult to do so. Once we get back to the pack house we take a bath together and settle for breakfast. Boniface and Ent have requested that we allow them to take breakfast together, and since we understand that they need to bond we have allowed them. With us in the breakfast table is James' father, his step-brother Mike and stepmother. They have been away on vacation and now that James has called for a meeting of senior pack members they have been invited too. Mike keeps on stealing glances at me but it's as if he's afraid of his mother. He is not as touchy and talkative as the first day we met. Or maybe he has sensed the seriousness of the coming meeting. We eat in silence, except for small requests like passing the salt, and everyone is a bit nervous. James' father finally breaks the silence. So James, tell me, how was the war? He inquires. James, busy with a piece of bread, takes his time first and when he has swallowed and washed it down with a sip of coffee, looks towards his father.
Dad, war is never easy. I wouldn't want it again and should the same circumstances repeat themselves I would stay away. Maybe I should have stayed away on hindsight.
He says. Yes, war is bad and it should be avoided. Before engaging in it, dialogue and diplomacy should be employed, his father advises. No one else speaks and we finish eating, then walk directly to James' office where the all-important meeting is about to take place. Several members have already arrived and they're seated, awaiting for us. James takes his seat at the head of the table, and I'm to his right and his father at the left. Other members including his beta Josh line both sides of the tables, facing each other. I gather that this is the second meeting of this sort since his inauguration. The first one was to accept his roles and line up his policies. After much persuasion, I know some agendas of the meeting.
Distinguished members, we gather here today to deliberate on our pack's affairs. I'm going to give an outline of what we have gone through and what is ahead of us.
He pauses to take a deep breath, looks around then proceeds. I am all ears.
It's long time since we met and as I have always stated, I always need your input in running our affairs.
James starts. Everyone is attentive, listening keenly. I wonder who among the members is the traitor. Such a despicable person, listening on to our secrets so as to use them to benefit our enemies. A person like that deserves only one thing, death by hanging, and he or she is right here, masquerading as a team player.
However, That would not have been possible if it were not for the diligence displayed by our youth, who fought viciously to ward off an attack on our neighbor. We all remember that if a fire starts in our neighbor's house, we help to put it off, not because of the love we have for the neighbor, but mainly because we want to prevent it from spreading to our own houses.
He says in his extraordinary speech, I hate myself for letting my brain to wander off because I want to hear the whole speech. All around me I see serious faces, yearning for every word, even the unknown traitor, waiting for information that will be transmitted to Janet and her accomplices, to make it easier for them to kill me.
The war is now behind us, and we need to focus ahead. Right now we have graduation ceremonies that are slated to take place on the same day across the colleges next week.
At the mention of graduation, my heart skips a beat. This is the day Janet and crew have planned for me. If they are not stopped, then it will be disaster.
Naturally, to offer security to all those ceremonies that will be taking place in different institutions, we need to bring in our trained warriors. Our pack is renowned for its academic potential and we don't want any security breaches to spoil it.
James says. I look around to see whether I can spot the traitor, but whoever he is, there is no sign. They're so good at what they do. I turn my attention back to James. His speech is almost coming to an end.
I will assign duties to each one of you present here, and I expect you to execute your duties with utmost dedication. Our Luna, Natalie here, will be responsible for the command of all our female warriors during that day. She will be moving from college to college to see what can be improved.
I almost jump up to protest, but then a look from James makes me remain in my seat. This piece of information is false, and now I understand his strategy. As one of those who need security on that day, it would make no sense to expose me by assigning duties to me. I have also noted some reaction from members in the meeting, but I downplay them.
Finally, I want to thank all the members present for standing with me even during adversity. We trust that together we will conquer all that which stands before us. I always count on your undivided loyalty to this pack. Thank you all. I invite anyone with questions to ask now.
He finalizes his speech and sits down, and we wait for anyone with a question. There are no questions, and James invites his father to speak. My mind wanders away from the meeting and I start thinking about Janet. How and when did she establish the network here? What did she promise the traitor? And what will they benefit if I am eliminated? The millions of questions bother me such that I don't grasp a single word James' father says, and I only come back to my senses when he's about to sit down. The meeting is over and everyone disperses. I walk back to our quarters and take out the excess clothes and relax. James joins me a few minutes later.
Hi, now we only need to wait. Boniface is on their phones. If someone leaks out the information about you leading the female battalion, that will be our man.
He says in a low tone. Boniface? How is Boniface going to do this? Excuse me, Boniface? When? What? I begin.
Relax, brew some coffee and wait. We may be here all day and night, but if we have a traitor here, rest assured Boniface will catch them.
He says. When did you bring him aboard? I demand.
You just trust me. He is the only person I could trust. He can't sell out on you, and besides, he is a newcomer who knows very little about us.
He tells me. Ordinarily I would be losing my temper at him for bringing in Boniface behind my back, but since it's about my security I let it go. Well, I guess we will just have to wait, I say and lie on the couch. James goes to the washrooms, leaving his phone on the table. It starts ringing and Boniface's number is displayed on the screen. I call out on James and he comes right away.
What? Are you sure? I'm coming right away.
He says into the phone.
Come with me, there's something you need to hear.
He says to me. Quickly I put on my jogging pants and follow him through the corridors until we get into the radio room. Boniface is seated behind a complicated machine with headphones on his head. On the table is a big screen with zigzags displayed as some voice tape is being played. He signals for us to close the door to soundproof the room. Yes. She will be available on that day. It will be easy for you to take care of her. This time don't make mistakes like before. A voice says. I don't know who it belongs to, but James is shocked beyond words. He stands behind me, arms akimbo and clicking his tongue repeatedly. Another voice is playing. We are also interested in this new guy Boniface. How can we get him? The voice asks. That one may be difficult. He is always inside the pack house, but on graduation day he must come out. He is the brother to the bitch. The answer leaves me dumbfounded. Who is this who hates me this much? Looking at James, he already knows the answer. The conversation is still going on. Natalie has to die. If I can't have Alpha James, no one else should. I recognize Janet's voice. So this is it? She has tried everything and failed, and now she wants me dead so that I don't have James? What kind of myopic thinking is this? You will have your opportunity that day. Just don't implicate me, the voice says. But James indicates that he has listened enough. He takes my hand and drags me out, back to our quarters.
I'll kill him myself,
he says, banging the table with his fist. But who is he?
You don't know that voice? That's my beta, the man I entrusted with running this pack in my absence, my second in command. Look now what I was saying, I can't trust anyone anymore,
he says ruefully. It's evident that he is in so much pain. What will you do about it? I ask with concern.
He will have to take us where this Janet is. After that we will kill him. That's as the price one pays for betraying their pack,
he says. Such a pity. Beta Josh looks every bit a gentleman. He is one person I have grown to like. I never knew he hated me this much to an extent of calling me a bitch. There must be a mistake, James. Maybe you had the voices mixed up. I don't even know what to think. This is happening too fast.
No, I know that voice even in my sleep. Beta Josh is going to be relieved of his duties this evening. I should have listened to advice and relieved him long time ago when I took over leadership. He was my father's beta too, and they should have gone together to allow me to bring in my new team. I thought he would be my advisor and guide, but it seems that I was wrong. Why, Josh? Why?
He asks angrily. His wolf may take control of him if he goes on like this, and I fear what may happen in such a case. He needs to calm down. His phone rings again, and it's Boniface again. He puts it on speakerphone. Good evening, Alpha James. Beta Josh is on the move. Should I trail him? He asks. James thinks for a moment. It's a hard decision that he must make right away.
Yes, but I am going with you,
he says. Me too, I quip. Trader's last day. Natalie.
I don't think it's a good idea, Natalie. It may be dangerous for you, and I don't want you to risk your life as well as your unborn pup. Just stay back here,
James says. We are now in the radio room together with Boniface. On a huge screen there is a green dot that keeps on moving, and Boniface has already informed us that the dot represents Beta Josh's phone as he walks into the deep woods. Our speculation is that he is going to meet with our enemies, Janet included. 4 plans against us. James has already indicated that he is leaving with Boniface to find out what Beta Josh is up to, and he is trying to dissuade me from joining them, but I must go too. I need to see Janet's final bow. I need to put to an end her taunts against me. I must go. Let's not argue about this. It's either we go together or no one goes, I say. The 2 men look at each other, communicating silently, and just when James is about to tell me what he thinks about it and walks in. Going somewhere without me, guys? She asks. Boniface quickly speaks. Look, babe. We are about to pursue an enemy of the pack. We haven't left just yet, and I was about to tell you before we leave. He tells her. She isn't satisfied with the answer. From the look in her eyes, she wants more explanations.
It's a risky operation, but your mate will be back soon,
James quips. Is Natalie going? She asks James. I decide to keep silent and listen.
Yes, she is.
James says. So am I. Let me put on my boots, she says as she moves out. Well, I ask. We tried to warn you. Now, put on your jungle attire and take with you a flashlight. We are going out. And this ain't a picnic. I'd carry a sword too if I were you, Boniface says. 30 minutes later we are walking into the woods, armed to the teeth. It's in early hours of the evening and there's a cool breeze that rattles the leaves of the trees around us. This would make a very good night for a picnic, but right now we are out for serious business. Boniface is carrying a small gadget with a miniature screen that keeps on beeping to indicate Beta Josh's position. Nobody talks and the night is so silent except for occasional chirping of crickets and other insects. Every one of us is carrying a sword and my dagger is secured in my belt. I have come a long way with this dagger and I feel as if it has become part of me. I never leave it when I am going out, and in the rare occasions that I do I feel that I have betrayed it. I have used it severally, but the most memorable was when I used it to free us from the rogue camp.
Hey ladies, you should hurry up and catch up with us. The man is about 3 kilometers away from here,
James says, waking me from my thoughts, and is walking silently beside me. Lost in thought too, and the two men are at least 10 meters in front of us. They are talking but I can't hear what they're saying. What do you think, Anne? Today we are going to kick ass. Are you ready? I ask. As a matter of fact I am. It's been a long time since I did, bearing in mind that I didn't get enough opportunity because of the imprisonment, she says. We walk again in silence as I digest her statement. She must have suffered in prison after I left her. Boniface. The woods become thicker and thicker as we walk towards the location on my screen. The grounds change from grasslands to bare earth owing to the large tree canopies that block the sunlight, hence hindering any growth of creeping plants. The beep has stopped moving at a point in the woods and we are now approaching very fast. A challenge arises though. All of us are wolves and our presence may be detected from afar, alerting the enemies, or even making them escape. That would defeat our purpose because Alpha James has made it clear that we kill everyone in the vicinity. According to him, he has received intelligence that Janet is in the company of an assassin who has been paid to kill me, and other rogues she has enlisted to help her to kill Natalie. If indeed an assassin is coming to kill me, then I should kill him before he kills me. As for those who want to harm my sister, to kill them preemptively is not a sin. We need to approach with caution. Most importantly, the direction of the wind should be something we must consider. I say to James as we continue closing on our target. The beep is still stationary to indicate that he has stopped walking and he's probably seated with our enemies. That traitor.
Yes, you are right. Right now we are going against the wind. They can't detect our scent. Let's move with speed and catch them by surprise,
James says. I signal the ladies behind us and we move in together. We are now only about 500 meters from them and we can hear faint noises. James is uncharacteristically silent, but I can tell he is very angry. Everyone, get your sword ready. We are going to have some action soon. I order. We continue walking and stop abruptly when the conversation between Josh and our enemies becomes very clear. We all lie low and listen. They should die. Both of them, James, Natalie, and by extension his parents and stepbrother. That's the only way I will become Alpha, the unmistakable voice of Beta Josh says. This shocks me to the core. In my thinking I thought Natalie was the only target. James is fuming with rage beside me and his wolf growls loudly. That wasn't our plan, but we can negotiate if you give us Boniface. I want his head. Comes the answer from a deep voice. You can kill him. I don't care. He is the brother to that bitch and that one alone qualifies him for death. I can't take it anymore. I ask for permission to attack from James and he tells me to go ahead. I whisper the orders and we all rise up and run towards the meeting. I have estimated at least 5 people in the gang, meaning that we are outnumbered, but that will not stop us. They are caught completely off guard. I wonder what kind of professionals they are, all cramped inside a tent without at least one person keeping sentry. Hearing us, they scamper outside, and in the clear moonlight I count them. I was right. They are 5 people. 4 men and Janet, the only woman. We surround them and James speaks.
You have no option but to surrender. Your mission has just aborted. Lay down any weapon in your possession, and that's an order. As for you, Josh, I am sorry for what is going to happen to you,
He says, in an aside to his beta. My loyalties lie with the pack, James. You have failed us by taking a rogue for your mate and Luna, and that one is going to lead to your downfall. Janet here would have made a good Luna. Unlike this Scarface, I am not afraid of you, James, and if you feel that you are man enough, draw your weapon and defend yourself. Josh replies defiantly. For a moment I see a mixture of reactions in Alpha James. He doesn't know whether to get angry or to get surprised at the words of his beta, but instinctively as a warrior he draws his sword, and so does everyone else. Then we charge at each other. Metal clashes. Men and women scream as they lunge at each other, and I concentrate on the males. I am fighting 2 men, and from the onset I know that they pose no threat to me. The first one charges at me, and I duck, tactfully falling to the ground. As he jumps over me I thrust my sword at him, slicing his abdomen open. His bowels fall out in a gross scene and I roll away just in time as the next one strikes. He misses me and his sword digs into the ground. Then as he pulls it out I stand on my feet. He strikes again, and this time I strike too, and our swords meet. He pushes mine down, and I counter the move. He is strong, but what I don't have in strength I have intact. I kick at his knee, with great force that he loses his balance. Then as he struggles to regain it I drive my sword through his spinal cord and he falls in a heavy thud. I have no time to look at his body because just then I hear and scream, and I see her going down. The man she is fighting lifts up his sword, to strike the last blow. Quickly, I aim at him and throw my sword, which catches him in the neck, sending him stumbling backwards. He drops his own sword and grasps mine in his 2 hands. Then he goes on his knees and falls. I rush to where Anne is lying, worried that she may be hurt, but on getting there she rises to her feet. She had been hit on the head, temporarily losing her consciousness. That was a coward, preparing to kill a defenseless woman. 3 down, 2 remaining. James and Josh fight the fiercest battle. James fueled by the anger of betrayal and the defiance of his own official. Josh driven by nothing else but jealousy. The swords clash, producing metallic sounds that produce echoes in a nearby cliff. They kick at each other, lunge, duck and strike again. I admire their tactics, and I stand guard, waiting to intervene should James get overwhelmed. But he doesn't. Josh is caught unawares, perhaps after getting worn out. One moment he's fighting ruthlessly, and the next he is staggering on his knees, his head cleanly severed from his body. He falls down, as the head rolls into the undergrowth. At the same moment Natalie joins us, having successfully defeated Janet. We have conquered them, in only 15 minutes.
I hope that everyone is fine.
James asks. Nobody speaks.
All right, we need to get rid of these bodies. Boniface, look for a cave, or hole. We can't leave them here.
He says.
As for you ladies, clean these swords.
He adds. The next half hour is spent dragging the bodies into a cave I have just found in the cliff, something that James and I conduct with precision. We arrange them in the furthest corner and throw in some twigs. Their bodies will never be found. When we join the ladies they have finished wiping the swords and we can now go back home.
This is now over. We can now get on with our lives without worrying. Natalie can now attend the graduation without fear. Janet is now dead and gone. Boniface, I will be forever be indebted to you. Thanks for helping me get this traitor. I never knew that I had an enemy within.
he says as we walk back. I am forever at your service, Alpha James. Epilogue. 1 week later. Natalie. James and I run in the woods early in the morning. It has become a routine these days, something we do every day before breakfast. We have identified a good spot for leaving our clothes before shifting. I enjoy every moment running with him, but it's going to be short-lived. Soon he will be running alone because my pregnancy may come in the way. But right now it's my time to enjoy. Today is graduation day and I'm looking forward to obtaining my diploma in business studies. That alone won't be enough because I also need some knowledge in administration, but that one can wait until I give birth. Things have cooled down after the exposure of Beta Josh as an enemy of the pack. We are certain that he was not working alone and Boniface has been busy trying to figure out who his accomplices were. He hasn't found any so far, but he keeps on digging. My hunch is that he won't find them because, like a snake in its head, when a traitor dies his organization crumbles. In this case, Josh's accomplices have dispersed and kept quiet, and as long as they're not bothering us, we are fine. Boniface is the new head of security, but most of his work is the newly formed covert department of espionage. He taps phones, monitors movements, and generally keeps his eyes open. We wouldn't need a situation like Beta Josh's scandal again. Our neighbors paid us a visit, starting with Alpha Jones. He was received with pomp and color, and entertained in song and dance, and when the senior members of his pack sat with us, they expressed their regrets at how relations between us had deteriorated. We were able to reach some understanding and later signed a peace treaty. Alpha Jones is facing some problems with rogues, and he has already asked our army to help him. As usual, James says he will be leading our troops. The man loves war. Next was Alpha Zach, who apologized profusely for the misunderstanding that occurred after the war. But we asked him hard questions, especially about the assassin they had hired to kill Boniface. He explained that he knew about the assassin, but he wasn't hired by the pack but by an individual. The individual happened to be the mate to their slain Gamma. We never told him what became of the assassin though. Our packs agreed to return to the friendship we had before the war and the commitment we had in the fight against rogues. Intelligence reports were coming in and a new group of rogues were regrouping under new leadership in the deep woods of the Woodland Pack. Maybe we will be required to fight them, but this time I will take a back seat. I'm tired of seeing blood and the mere thought of it makes me nauseous, especially during these times when I am expecting, and has been absorbed into the pack's medical team. Having studied nursing in college, their love with Boniface is in full bloom and now she is happy. Her brother Peter has been visiting the pack house frequently for greetings, and every time I see him I remember how their family helped me in my time of need. Not because they had much, but because they believed that I could become a better person. I am now the Luna of this pack because they rescued me from the jaws of a beast and restored me back to my health. Then took me to school. Some people can be so selfless, and I really don't know what I'll ever do to repay their generosity. Yesterday my parents joined us, but they are not here to stay. They only came for the graduation and to announce to us about what they thought of our proposal to them to join us. Sadly, they won't be coming here because they have a lot of attachment for the Two Hills pack. I will surely miss them when they go back.
Hey there!
James says. I am startled out of my dreams.
What are you thinking about?
He asks. I realize that I have been thinking for more than 15 minutes. Nothing really. Just a few musings, I say, getting up from the grass knoll I have been sitting on.
Well, we need to get back home. You know what is ahead of us today, don't you?
He asks.
I know only too well.
He comes closer, then throws his muscular arm around my waist and draws me closer, then tightens the grip. Then he looks down at me and kisses me. I kiss him back and I can feel his organ rising in his pants and I tap it to distract it. This not the time, nor the place. We will have much of it later. The graduation square is full to the brim as several students receive their degrees, diplomas and certificates. I am flanked by my parents, Boniface, Anne, Peter and Joseph. I can't hold back my tears as the documents are presented to me. It was only last week that I had decided to skip the function for fear of Janet, but now all that fear is gone. There are many speeches to be made, and as Luna I have been requested to make a few remarks. Dressed in my graduation gown, I grab the microphone to much applause from the onlookers. I am deeply humbled and exceedingly overwhelmed, and I feel like crying. However, I manage to compose myself, and in my unwritten speech I thank everyone present, starting with my mate Alpha James and my parents-in-law. I thank them for bringing up my mate, a person who is upright, loving and caring. I can see them nodding in the dais. Next I thank my parents for being there for me from my childhood, and Joseph for acting as my father when I was a rogue. Cheers erupt from the audience, and I pause to wait for them to tone down. I thank everyone else, and assure the graduates that they should never give up in life, that they should copy my example. When I was down I refused to remain down. When I was mistreated I refused to accept mistreatment. Anyone can rise from their lowest point and achieve success, just as I managed to rise from rogue to Luna.